Welcome to the Business Influencer podcast, where we'll be interviewing and exploring the success stories of high-profile entrepreneurs, senior business leaders, and senior policymakers. We'll be looking on a weekly basis the issues around the globe, which could be economics, global geopolitics, it could be tech, it could be property, it could be just business on a global basis, law, and it could be philanthropy. All the podcasts will be available on the usual sites, but if you prefer to watch your interviews, then hop over to the Natural Media YouTube channel, subscribe, and you can watch all the interviews. And if you want to keep up to date with all the interviews, you can do so on social media through LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So let's get into the first interview. It's with Dinesh Dhamija, who's the actual front cover story of the current issue of the Business Influencer magazine, and he will explain how he took a startup, Ebookers, a travel agency, from startup to then how he grew it, scaled it, floated it on the Nasdaq and the London Stock Exchange, how he prepared and executed an exit plan, and he'll explain some of the leadership issues, particularly around crisis when SARS was around. That sounds like a timely issue, and he'll also give us some tips for entrepreneurs at the end, and will explain how he lost $710 million. That's right, $710 million. So let's crack on and let's get into the podcast and have a listen to the wonderful Dinesh Dhamija. Dinesh, thank you for taking out time to talk to me. You're a hero of mine.
That's very kind of you, Ninder. But there has to be some substance behind a hero.
Well, look, I know the audience that this is going to go out to, and hopefully there's a lot for them to learn, particularly around persistence, resilience, adopting change, adopting tech, keeping your eyes open. So look, let me fire straight away now.
Sure.
There's a saying that entrepreneurs are sometimes governed by the environment in which they grow up. But interestingly, in your case, your father was a diplomat, so not really an entrepreneurial sort of background. So how did you end up becoming an entrepreneur despite being really growing up?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very good question. Actually, you grow sometimes later in life rather than growing within a family. And my growth into entrepreneurship happened when I came to the UK, and I didn't want to go back to India. I wanted to stay here. I tried, of course, trying to go back, but I liked living here. I came in January 1968, so I'm a first-generation immigrant.
Yeah.
And what I saw here, I mean, was impressive as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted to be in business. I saw that my parents, being civil servants, diplomats, my father was ambassador in many countries, but they were always short on salary and high on perks. So they always had a nice house and nice car, because that was provided for by the government of India. But there was always, where are we going to find the next £50 or £100 kind of thing, because they're salaries. So I said, I don't want this life. I need to be in business and be successful so that I don't have this problem. Of course, that's, you still have problems in business, but that's how I felt. And I started off in Earl's Court Station in 80 square feet in a kiosk. And 25 years later, I sold that business that I built for just under $500 million. Wow. Now, so my life, and I'm not answering your question fully, my life is 25 years in business, 10 years in charity, 5 years in politics, and now I'm going back into business.
So that sounds good. Now, am I right? They say part of an entrepreneur's journey is the ability to sell. They've got to be able to sell. Now, isn't it, I've heard that you sold insurance, and what did you learn from selling insurance the way in which you did? And how much of an impact did it have on you becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, it's the ability to earn money, and the easiest way of earning money is sales. In any company, if you don't sell anything, you can't pay for the finance department, the IT department, the human resources department, the legal department. You can't, because sales is the line job. And it's quite apparent in the United States. The line job from south to north is sales. And most managing directors, CEOs, presidents are sales. They're the ones who've done sales. The moment you get offline into human resources, finance, accounting, yes, you can get to the top, but it's much more difficult. If the company's in trouble, then a finance guy or an accountant will get to the top. But if it's doing well, you will have a salesperson, always. So sales is everything. Selling insurance door-to-door in council estates was quite important in that, could I make a living without having a full-time job? And I'm talking about the early 70s, when we were not really admired in council estates. and when you knocked on doors, you could be used, you could be just be standoffish or welcomed, and you didn't know. And you knocked on quite a lot of doors. Of course, a lot of doors people were not there. So we had to go in the evening from 6 to 10, because that's when the husband and wife were going to be together, so that we could sell them an insurance policy or an assurance policy. But it was tough. And that was a big learning for me, that, hang on, no one owes you a living. You've got to go out and get it.
Yeah, I'll share a very little small story. I know exactly what I went through. In my first graduate trainee job, I was given the job of selling what we call contractor pack fuses, all around sort of contractors, and some of them were lived at home. And I knocked on one door, and Dinesh, I was met by an Alsatian, and I broke my personal 100-meter record. So I know exactly what you're saying. It certainly sorts you out for the future. But interesting, though, you said about the States. Isn't it interesting that most of the big companies here, the top job goes to an accountant or a financer? It's just an interesting perspective you brought there.
No, I'm not sure if it always goes to an accountant. We might, it depends on the company you look at.
Yeah,
I mean, in the FTSE 100, if you saw most people, 25 years ago, most people were from Oxford or Cambridge. And most people, 50% of the people read classics, which is a great training of the mind. But now you see the FTSE 100, it's totally different. There are people from all over the world in there. You've got women, you've got, all that. So it's a good thing. Diversity is good.
So from selling insurance, how did you end up selling tickets? How did you end up selling tickets from insurance?
Well, I then even had a stint working for IBM for about 8 months. But you see, in those days, the Labour government was in, the old Labour government, and the lowest rate of tax was 40%. And then there was 10% national insurance. So 50% of your salary went in taxes. So if you were earning, in those days at IBM, I was earning £7,250 a year. And I'm talking about the 70s now. And £3,625 was going in tax. And I thought, hang on, if I start any business, it could be making shoes, it could be travel tickets, whatever it is. And if I could expense, my telephone calls, my travel, in transport and all these things, I could then perhaps double my salary because I won't have to pay tax, you see, as a self-employed or business. And so I said, hang on, that's it. The way to double your standard of living is to start a business. And it just so happened that we found a kiosk. It's a story, but of course, but I found a kiosk of 80 square feet. And my wife knew more about travel than I did because she'd been an Air India hostess. And me and another friend's wife who was doing nothing at home. And we said, we can't pay you, so come and sit down and have a chat. Yeah. And the three of us.
Interesting remuneration.
Yeah. Three of us. We paid her in the end, of course, because we became okay. And we started. So that's the deal. Even cash flow. You see, travel's very good in that airlines give you, in those days, gave you a month's credit.
Okay.
So, we weren't an IATA agent, licensed agent, but we did a deal with a licensed agent who also gave us a month's credit. So we were absolutely fine. But anyway, that's how you start. You get your breaks, and everyone's lucky from time to time.
So tell me, people always remember when they set up the business and they're on their entrepreneurial journey, they always remember their first sale because they know they've suddenly got a business. Not they go, my gosh, somebody's bought from me. I have a business. Do you remember your first sale? I know you've had many sales, but do you remember your first sale?
Neither I don't, because really we were middlemen. But we were so green behind the ears. We just didn't know what we were doing. And our first attempt at market research was when people came in and we gave them a fare, because we gave them a normal fare. We never gave them the consolidated fare. They about to walk out said, thank you very much. We said, excuse me, would you like some tea or coffee? Yeah, we'll have some coffee. So we used to make them coffee and then talk to them and said, why were you leaving? And then the guys on the other side of the station, we were on the Warwick Road side, are selling it at half the price you're selling it at. So we said, really? that's how we learned.
What's also interesting, Dinesh, is a lot of the earlier Asian businesses did well because they sold to other Asian businesses. Does that make sense? Or sold to Asian consumers. But you obviously weren't frightened or fearful. You just went for it. And you just said we were green behind the ears. So sometimes do people, you think, spend so much time analyzing, thinking about it, that by the time they decide to set up in business, it's too late, the opportunity is gone, or they never feel ever ready. But you obviously didn't hang around.
No, I totally agree with you, Ninder. You hit the nail on the head. The reason people try and go, they think that they have to build a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And while actually business is about changing the wheels of a car as it's running. So, and you're learning as you go along. So I started off with, I tried to look at the Asian businesses, but they were selling tickets at a profit of 50p or £1. Yeah. And sometimes the others, not the Asians, would come in and someone made a mistake and put a £20 markup, and they said, that's fine. We said, hang on, I have to sell 20 tickets to Asians and 1 ticket to non-Asians. Then I looked at it and I said, hang on, 2% of the population is Asian, 98 is not. What am I doing? I should be selling to the 98.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that Asian bucket shops, they were called, or travel agencies, were that they shouldn't be licensed because it costs money. Now, in ABTA, which was the Association of British Travel Agents, sign, your member was £2,500 a year, which was a lot, And I got one of their leaflets and I looked at the benefits. And the first benefit was we were paying 3% to credit card companies. And if you were a member of ABTA, the same credit card companies were charging 1%. So my 2,500 came back to me within 1.5 months.
Yeah.
See, and things like that, you'll keep looking, you will find them.
Now, the other thing about entrepreneurs is that they're adept at picking up an opportunity when it comes, and they're quite happy to shift and move positions.
Oh, pivot.
And so a certain Harvey Goldsmith came into your place and asked you to do something that typically somebody who's regimented would say, no, we're not shifting. But you saw the opportunity, and I'll let you explain the opportunity, but you saw the opportunity and you said, I'll take it, because you were really an entrepreneur. So explain the opportunity, what brought Harvey Goldsmith to you.
As I pointed out earlier, I was at the Warwick roadside entrance of Earl's Court Station, which was facing the Earl's Court Arena, the huge, and Bob Dylan was playing there. And he was quite an icon of mine, but, we'd moved on from Bob Dylan at that time. But anyway, it was one of his last concerts. And Harvey Goldsmith was the promoter, and he wasn't given a box office in that Earl's Court. So he came to me, which was the only place, next door, across the street, and said, would you like to be a box office? Of course, I didn't know what a box office was. and I, it's actually a small box and you're selling tickets, but I didn't know that. Anyway, I said, but I'm a travel agent. And he said, I'll give you £500 a day. And I said, sure, what do I have to do? So it was quite easy that I made up my mind that I was going to make £2,000 as a profit over and above ticket sales, where I was making 50p or £1. So let's say our expenses were there, but the £2,000 extra, gosh, in 4 days, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So in those days, we had a telephone system, key and lamp system. So you put all the keys down so no one could get through. And there were people coming for tickets and saying, I've been trying to get hold of you for 2 days and I can't get hold of you.
But you saw the opportunity. You could see how that would add to it, and you didn't hesitate. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs or some people take so long in deciding, opportunities then disappear. And it's having that gut feeling, isn't it? It's knowing.
But sometimes you also make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's not that everything is, hunky-dory.
So as you, Harvey Goldsmith, so as you started to grow and you started to accelerate, how did you find scaling up? And how did you find, because some entrepreneurs find it very difficult to let go as it expands. How did you manage to navigate around that? How did you manage to scale and let go at the same time and concentrate on the big picture?
We scaled up over, let's say we started in 1980, and by about 1996, we had 236 people.
Wow.
So that was good going in that, we had grown.
Yeah.
The real scaling took place when we started the internet, which went from, in 1999, from about the same number of people to 2,000 people by 2004. So I mentor and coach people on how to grow and how to grow fast. And these were the two instances over 25 years.
Yeah.
Which, we were taking 15 new people a week.
Wow.
So how am I supposed to, before, of course, we knew the names of their names, their wives or partners' names, even their kids' names sometimes. And now we're taking 15 people a week. And so there are some people who are, who cannot grow, they're control freaks. Yeah. So all these people who were supervisors and managers were leaving because they said, sorry, we can't take this. This one is not trained enough, that one doesn't do the work, but the internet was like, it was full blown in that we were in 11 countries, we were in 2,000 people. It was just, we were making mistakes and learning rather than training first. But we just needed people, and that was one way of growing. And you had to let go. If you didn't let go, you would have gone bust. So, it's not that. No one will be, because you're judging, no one will be able to work like you do, which is 100%.
Yeah.
Because you're judging.
Yeah.
If someone can work 75% to what you can do, hire them. Because that's all you're going to get. You're never going to get more than 75 or 80% as you're judging.
And did you think that as you were growing, did you feel you were becoming more of a coach and a manager of a football team example, rather than playing the football yourself? And did that require you to think differently about coaching and people? And
the thing is that we went public on the NASDAQ and on the London Stock Exchange. So there are certain duties as a CEO of a London Stock Exchange company, or NASDAQ company, that you have to perform. And you have to have a team. You can't do it yourself. So there has to be some kind of succession. Anything can happen to you. That doesn't mean the investor's money goes down, and so on and so forth. So I mean, it was a different. I was only, as CEO, wanting to get the best people I could hire and look at investors' relations. Investor relations and the best people I could hire. That's what my job was. My job was not selling tickets. Yeah, those things have been put in operation and were.
So let's go back a bit and pick up, because you mentioned NASDAQ and London Stock Exchange. So let's go back a bit. You were flying on the tickets. And the other thing that what I found quite interesting was that you were open-minded. So even if you came across something you didn't understand, you looked at it. So how did you and tech come together? How did you end up from tickets to tech to NASDAQ and the London Stock Exchange? There's a few things that happen there. So perhaps if you could, so we're back to selling tickets, from tickets, and then what happens? So
there was a friend of mine in Germany who had developed a software in the 90s, and he used to keep talking about it, that there is this thing called the internet, and I can put my software in. And I said, yeah, he was German. And I said, Rudy, don't waste my time, sort of talk turkey, selling tickets. I don't want all this. So anyway, one day he came and said, listen, I will program your phone for 8 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock midnight. How many tickets you'll sell without even talking to the people?
Wow.
So I said, okay, okay, you go. I'm not paying you any consultancy or anything. This is such a waste of time. And so he said, okay, I'll do that. And he put the software, which was basically connected to the Sabre reservation system.
Yeah.
And every day, Ninder, I can tell you, my phone used to beep at 8 in the morning, 0 sales.
Yeah.
Midnight, 0 sales. Every day. I said, what an ass I've been. For 2-3 weeks, this went on. And I said, oh, okay, well, one day in the morning, between 12 midnight and 8 in the morning, 2 ticket sales.
So you remember that sale?
Yeah.
You remember that one?
I said, this Rudy, he's done it purposely himself, to show that there are sales. Actually, there are no sales. So anyway, I rang up my office at 9 in the morning and I said, wait, these 2 tickets, were they sold? They said, yeah, we got the credit card number, we got the profit, we got everything. I said, really? Anyway, for the next few days, few weeks, it went like 4, 0, 2, 3, 0, 0, 5, like this. And then 1 month we had 1,000 tickets.
Wow.
So, it was totally amazing. Now you should see the psyche in the office.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did they think?
Yeah,
what did they think?
Yeah, machine aa gayi hai. Sorry,
Yeah.
This machine has come.
Yeah.
It is taking our jobs away.
Yeah.
So I said, listen, this internet department, which was just 2 people out of 200 and something, can we get about 6 more people? So I asked 6 supervisors, please give us 1 person from your department So what do? They gave us the worst person so that the internet would fail.
Yeah, absolutely. Job preservation. Yeah, yeah.
So suddenly, these 6 worst persons became the top salesmen of the company because they were selling so much. The internet was selling the tickets, then they were selling cars, they were selling hotels, they were selling travel insurance, on stuff and add-on stuff and all that. So we're giving the figures to everyone. Now they're the top sales. Then the other people from the teams wanted to join the department, not the managers. So that's how the culture shift took place.
And I mean, that's so interesting because we talk about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
We talk about robots going into manufacturing. We talk about people now being frightened of losing their jobs. And you saw that so many years ago where people frightened of an algorithm that was selling your tickets. So it's interesting, the sort of techniques entrepreneurs and owner managers and directors need to think about with that fear of people thinking they're going to lose their job. And tell me, why do you think travel was more suited to tech? How did that work? Was it? I mean, I'll tell you why I said that, because I ran a record company in the past, and Jobs came along in 2007 and made our CDs and vinyl sales redundant, and just said to people, "You can buy off a phone now." Bing, 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 bing. So, what made you think, and why do you think tech was suited to travel?
One thing is, in travel, you're selling a dream.
Okay.
You're talking about traveling in 6 months' time or 3 weeks' time, or whatever, and you're dreaming you're going to India, or you're going to the States, or you're going to see Pisa or Tuscany or whatever, and it can be done online.
Yeah.
You're not buying a pair of shoes which they have to fit you.
Yeah.
Even now, that's being done, of course, but it wasn't at that time.
Yeah.
So it was Internet 1.0 at that time.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, was that as we were licensed, they could always return the tickets.
Yeah.
So that they bought. We were very good on selling flights, but not good on selling hotels, car hire, insurance, that sort of thing, destination services. So those had to be sold by people who were in our office.
Yeah.
And now, of course, it's way advanced to at that time. So,
but it was interesting. You took a punt because you knew your customer's journey, how they normally bought, which was come in, can I buy a ticket for this and this? But you took a punt and you thought and you saw that consumers could buy without human interaction. In other words, you could disintermediate.
Correct.
And take things out. But you had the vision to see that.
Well,
a lot of other people didn't.
You can't give me credit for that, Ninder, because I saw what was happening in the States. They were 3 years ahead of us. And Expedia, Travelocity, and others were doing a roaring business. And so, see, there were 3 things, I think, that suited the internet: gambling, porn, and travel. And all 3 of them were doing really well. And I was at a London Business School listening to a professor, and Jeff Sampler, his name was, and he said, there's this lady in Canada, Toronto, who got pregnant and took leave, leave to have the baby. She hired a geek who wrote a software. That software went to all the porn sites of the world and got the thumbnails of each porn site, and she put them in her site. And she then went to advertisers, and guess how much she was making? And so we said, no, we can't guess. And Jeff said, $8 million a month.
Oh.
So she said, you can only advertise, I've got everything here. So you $8 million a month. So we said, you're lying. How can you make $8 million a month? So there was this phone on the boardroom table, the speaker phone. And he dialed her number, to Canada. And I don't know what her name was. And he said, let's say it was Tracy. He said, Tracy, Hi, this is Jeff Sampler, and now I have some people here who don't believe that you made $8 million last month. And she says, they're right. I made $11 million last month. And, and we said, well, what's the name of the site? So he said, PersianPussy.com. So it's all gone. But I mean, at that time. So we knew that porn was good. We knew that gambling was good because gambling was happening, right? 888 and all these things, were that. And we knew through Expedia and Travelocity that travel was doing damn well.
Wow. So how did you end up, again, you did something, when you think about big ideas, big vision, you saw the big picture, you saw floating. So how did you end up at NASDAQ? How did you end up floating?
First of all, it was a land grab situation. You needed to raise money fast,
okay,
so that others couldn't compete with you. And we're talking middle of 1999. So you needed to, I've lost my thought, but I'll just tell you. I needed to raise money to take over most of Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, because the UK only had 60 million people.
Okay.
But Europe had, with the UK, the countries I want to go to have 300 million people.
Yeah.
So the footfall would be greater, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I said, how do we do this? And the London Stock Exchange hadn't got it. They didn't value internet companies. But the NASDAQ had got it because you had Amazon, Yahoo, AOL, everyone there. So I approached JP Morgan, and JP Morgan were very, very happy to take us public. At that time, Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs had taken a lead in internet companies, and JP Morgan had been left behind. So they were quite happy taking us public, and we raised $61 million at a valuation of $306 million. So our sales were only about $23 million, but our valuation was $306 million. Wow. This is what the internet was all about. So we raised $61 million, not for us to take away, but for us to spend in building the infrastructure. And you won't believe it. We said, okay, who are the two premier companies where we can, who are the Googles of my time? And they were AOL and Yahoo at that time. Yeah. So I went to AOL and Yahoo. And so in those days, 61 million came to 38 million pounds. So I went to AOL and Yahoo here, and they said, we know you've raised 38 million pounds because it was public knowledge.
Yeah.
We can give you a 3-year deal on advertising. We won 19 million pounds.
Whoa.
So I said, oh my God, what? How can I just spend 19 million pounds on this? Anyway, I said, let me think about it. The next day, I signed the check.
Wow. And
you see, in that, they were also giving that, they'll say AOL Travel, and in on a page, and then behind that would be the Ebookers booking engine.
Yeah.
And it'd be Yahoo Travel and the Yahoo Ebookers booking engine. So frankly, I was their travel agent as well.
Yeah.
As well as 250,000 advertisements, as well as France and Germany. So I had UK, France, and Germany, the 3 big countries.
Yeah.
And everyone else was feeding off, like the Scandinavians and the Dutch and others, of these 3 engines, you see. Well, at that time, I didn't realize, so this is lucky. An internet year is 7 years, like a dog year.
Yeah.
So I had taken out my competition for 21 years.
Wow.
And by the time the 3 years ended, my sales was $600 million.
600 million.
Because it was a monopoly situation.
Yeah.
You see? So they couldn't catch up. There was only one company who raised a lot of money, and that was lastminute.com.
Yeah.
So Last Minute and us were the two competitors. We had the monopoly situation, they had the cash, and they were putting it, but they couldn't advertise on Yahoo and on AOL. Of course, Google had just started at that time. So if we had got Google, it would have been amazing.
So two things there. Firstly, you understood the power of marketing and branding. So you didn't take the money. You knew that you had this money, but you had to spend it.
Yeah,
you knew when to spend it.
That was a condition.
Yeah, and I think secondly, you understood the first mover advantage. So you moved first, and that enabled you then in those 3 years just to woof.
First mover and monopoly.
Yeah.
The two advantages. Not quite a monopoly, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And how did you change as a person from running a little ticket kiosk to suddenly managing stakeholders, managing AOL, big companies like that, talking to investors who've given you the money, you had all these people working for you. Crikey, you're in a totally different place to when you...
I joined an organization called YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, in 1993. And I came and I met a whole load of CEOs of different kinds, in London and all. And after about a year, I thought they liked me only. Why should I be, not more, not less than them, if you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So this was quite important in that confidence building is a good thing. And then all the press and everyone else, because we were first, wanted to interview us. So we were in great demand from that point of view too. And, sometimes it could go to your head, but you had to keep, dumbing down because you had a lot of problems also. It wasn't that you were growing just like that.
So just going back to this meeting the young presidents, you said they were from all of the sectors. Do you think that mixing with people from other industries, other disciplines, people who were very good at what they did, helped you then in your industry? Because you know what people do? They tend to stick around in their own little industry and never go out and never learn from other disciplines and other people and other better. So you think that was instrument that helped? Everything
helps. But one of the things was that the Yahoo CEO was also a YPO, a young president, So I had met him there. You see, that was important.
So networking is essential.
Yeah, essential.
Absolutely essential. I spoke to somebody in the tech game, and I said to the guy in the tech game, I said, listen, your job is to disintermediate, take out, make the process much quicker. You don't need to network. He said, no. I definitely need to network, because if I don't, I may be disrupting other people. They're going to come and disrupt me. So I need to know what's going on. So networking, irrespective of where you are, is essential.
Always learning.
Excellent. So just now, fast forward a bit. Now, we talk about entrepreneurs needing resilience, needing persistence. And it took you 15 years to get British Airways on your side. What kept you going? Most people, I'll tell you, Dinesh would have said, stuff this.
No, it wasn't that bad. You see,
was it? Okay.
You could buy British Airways through other agents.
Okay.
There were consolidators for British Airways. Yeah. So you could buy them through other agents because they didn't. But usually consolidators came from tickets to the Asian subcontinent.
Okay.
And what I was doing was selling to the whole world, because my market wasn't Asia. My market was the population, and I think British Air was being the flag carrier, being the biggest airline operator in the UK, they were quite circumspect appointing people as agents. And I think that, yes, it took a long time to get it. And you always think that you deserve it earlier. But whatever happened, I think it was good that we got it. That is true. But when we started the internet, we went from, I don't know what our turnover was, I've forgotten, but we were growing at between $100 and $300 million a year. And so no airline could turn around and say, we're not giving you a deal, because we could sell an alternate airline to them. Yeah. So then, of course, it was totally different.
Part of a skill set of an entrepreneur is things happen out of your control that you need to somehow make and manage. So, airline industry, two things I can think of straight away, and I'd be interested how you cope. SARS was one, outside your control. And I can still picture 9/11, which was huge. So there are you, one of the fastest growing companies in the world, who operate in that sector, and boom, how did you cope with that?
Before that, we had the internet bust as well.
Yes, yeah, of course.
But SARS obviously affected our long-haul travel to the Far East. But 9/11 was a killer blow. For 4 days, we just had to give out refunds. And I think we gave out millions in refunds. Thank God we had a month's credit, so we had that cash, but we gave out millions. And we couldn't see an end to this.
Wow.
So I think we then decided to fire 140 people, 60 in the UK and 80 in Europe. And we just, said, if this is going to go on, we're going to go bust.
Yeah.
And as a public company, we had to announce it.
Yeah.
That we're firing 140 people, and we're very sorry we're firing them. Guess what happened? Our share price went up. They said, these guys know how to manage in adversity, and our money will be safe with them. So our share price went up. I said, what? We just sat down and we said, I can't believe it. Here we're getting rid of people. That's the way it works.
Well, wasn't this also when, the share price went up, but your valuation took a hit, didn't it? 9/11.
Big time. No, that was just on the announcement it went up.
Okay. Okay.
See, we floated at $306 million, as I said.
Yeah.
It went down to $60 million
Wow.
after 9/11, at 9/11, 60. So, but you won't believe it. That was the third quarter. The fourth quarter was okay because people started traveling. But we had a bumper first quarter of 2002. Bumper. I mean, everyone and his dog wanted to travel. So we were fine. We passed through that, should we say. I mean, we had a lot of other problems. For example, our computers froze completely.
Okay.
And that was when we had 500 people on our website at the same time. At the same second, the computers backed up. So we had to rewrite the software, which took about 4 to 6 weeks. And we were taking phone calls. You can imagine at that time. Then they froze again when we had 1,788 people at that second on our website. Because from 500, we never said it'll go to, 70. So froze again. Again, we had to do all that. So we had then of course they didn't freeze up. But the point is that there's a lot of investment in the back end of application servers and others that you need. But of course they'll produce more over the long run.
So you said, I love that line, we did not when this crisis would end, 9/11. Now, that sounds very familiar, doesn't it, if you look at today?
Today is worse.
Yeah. People in the aviation industry and in the events industry, which I'm in, are thinking, actually, when will this end? When will this end? So what was your mindset? When you asked yourself that question, when is it going to end? What kept you going when you couldn't answer that question? Because nobody can answer that question. It's out of your control.
I don't remember what happened, but we were just commiserating with each other, perhaps. But afterwards, I said, God, what an opportunity. It was 60 million. I owned more than 50% of the company. I could have paid 20 million or borrowed 20 million and bought the whole company. That's the way you look at it.
Yeah.
And you say, oh God, what an opportunity missed.
What would your advice be now to people who do ask themselves, how long is this going to last? We've got zero income.
Have to survive. If you can survive, and that means you have to get rid of staff, you have to get rid of premises, you've got to get rid of everything, but survive.
Back to basics.
Back to zero, back to one, because there'll be lots and lots of people who won't survive. And when things come back, and they will come back, you are going to coin it, as they say, which is the point.
So here you are, ticket office, tech company, you float, you go through major crises, not of your volition, and entrepreneurs have to handle that. You get through all that, you continue to build a business, and then you come up with an exit strategy. And an exit strategy is, I think it's time to sell. So a couple of things. What made you decide to sell? And back to networking again. I heard somewhere, very interesting, I haven't heard this before, but I heard it with regards to you. You knew who would be looking to buy your business. You knew who the buyers were, and you understood the psychology of those buyers. Because through all those years of networking, that came back to benefit you because your intelligence, market intel, was just that little bit better than most. So why sell? And then how did you end up getting the big fat check?
My wife was working with me, Tani, and she said that I think we should sell. And she said, well, I want to leave in March 2004, at the end of that financial year, And I said, no, we're doing really well. And how are you saying sell? And she said, I want to leave. We can promote someone else as the managing director. And she left. And slowly it dawned on me that I saw Expedia and Travelocity, the American companies, gaining market share. And I looked at their marketing spend. They were spending £90 million a year when I was spending £18 million a year, 1/8.
Okay.
So the writing was on the wall. You can be as intelligent as you like. You might hold them for a bit. You might do various things, but in the end, you are going to be beaten. And that's what made me sell. So what was my offering to the potential buyers? My offering was $1 billion of sales.
Wow.
Okay. In 5 years, we'd gone from zero to $1 billion. We'd got 11 countries in Europe. We had a 1,000-man BPO in India, in Delhi. And so we had this whole network. Who would want to buy $1 billion of sales? Right? No bricks and mortar company could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it had to be an online company. And there were the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Priceline, Expedia, Travelocity, Last Minute, this, that, and the other. So I got in the bankers into my boardroom and I said, I will ring up the managing directors of 6 companies in front of you because they're my contacts. You're going to get a very little fee because they're my contacts.
Yeah.
And I rang them all up and they all said, we'd love to see a confidentiality agreement. In the end, there were 2 people who you see, we had a virtual document room. So they had a password. They could get in and see the documents. And in these, we could tell who's spending more time and who's not really spending time. You know, some people just wanted to see our contracts with the airlines, you know, our confidential contracts.
How did you feel about that going into your
so when you're selling, you're selling. So
okay.
you've got a confidentiality agreement. Of course, these guys are looking, they have the deals as well.
Yeah.
They wanted to see if we had a better one. You know?
Yeah.
So I didn't care about that. So we found one company had I think our calculation was that they spent $30 million in fees for their lawyers and everyone else. And we said, you know, these guys are really serious. And they eventually bought us.
And how did it feel? Well, no, how did it feel? And I think I know the answer because you said you were pretty clear about what you wanted to do. Was it still difficult to sell your baby, something you'd started, something you spent years on, whilst I accept the trajectory of growth was incredible. And so how easy was it? And do you remember the day the check arrived?
It didn't. It just went straight to the bank account.
I'm not sure how you get paid. I'm not sure how you get paid that kind of money, so I just thought I'd ask.
No, it was £100 million after tax.
Wow.
So that came in. So why did I think selling my baby? Well, 100 million is 50. It's 50 lottery wins.
Yeah.
If you take a lottery win as 2 million in those days. So it's like 50 lottery wins. How can you do better than that?
Just a quick question, and then I want to move on to the last 3, and then we're sort of wrapped up. You know, during this big growth, you know, the business is the business. Tell me, did the zeros make any difference? In other words, as the business grew, were the principles still the same, irrespective of the number of zeros that kept popping up on your balance sheet? And
now I have a banknote here.
Yeah.
Which is $100 trillion.
Oh, wow.
$100 trillion. One with 14
The Bank of Zimbabwe.
Correct. Now the deal is zeros don't matter, but pounds do matter.
So it didn't really, the zeros don't, the problems remain the same. It's just zeros at the end of it.
Well, you know, at least from a money point of view, you know, you still have problems.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now so entrepreneur, fantastic journey, then decides to get into politics.
No, for 10 years, I was into the charity.
Okay.
10
But
years.
then why politics? Why politics?
Well, I thought that, you know, I've done charity, I've done business.
Okay.
What about making, you know, and I saw Nick Clegg in government at that time.
Yeah.
Basically, Cameron and Nick Clegg were about the same. Then suddenly UKIP came up and Cameron started moving to the right to try and get the UKIP vote. And because he started moving to the right, I was basically a Cameron conservative.
Yeah.
And I then moved to Nick Clegg. So I went into politics, tried to help the Lib Dems and became a member of the European Parliament from London.
You said much earlier, and I heard you say it elsewhere as well, that you thought your growth was because instead of serving a population of 60 million, you saw a population of 500, 500 million. So you saw scale. So my guess is, one, that statement says a lot. Secondly, the fact that you joined the Lib Dems tells me that you think Brexit isn't good. Am I right?
Well, now I'm a Brexiteer, as I'm an
Okay.
Englishman, or I'm a British citizen. I was obviously against Brexit.
Yeah.
Because you see, I always follow the money.
Yeah.
Following the money bit, this is a big cutting the nose to spite the face.
Yeah.
Because, people might say there are 7 billion people around the world. Why don't you do business with them? You just can't. These guys are on the doorstep, and we've got a market of 500 million people. 500 million people. Why do you think the Americans keep buying the US companies, keep buying British companies? Because we have a market less than 5 times the size. So they have that much more money, and they can always pay more for our companies.
That's 2 questions. 3 pieces of advice for budding entrepreneurs.
I'm the vice chair of the global board of an entrepreneurs organization based in Silicon Valley called TIE.
Oh, wow.
So I started TIE in London as well. And I talk to entrepreneurs all the time.
Yeah.
It all depends which stage of business you're in, for what advice. I've done it right from the 0 to whatever, I got to. But the 3 pieces of advice are: think like a person investing in your business.
Yeah.
I mean, why would they want to invest in your business? Because they know that you're not good looking. So it's not that. Why would they want to invest? Your team, that shows the investor there'll be a succession of some sort if anything happens to you.
Yeah.
And always have a unique selling point, a USP. The USP can be speed, the USP, and then some various USPs that are very small but incremental, So those things are very, very, very important.
How important is mentoring?
Depends on the mentor.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, mentoring is good if you can get someone who has been in your business, who understands your business, and even if he or she says something that might not chime with you, it has to be, Now, I'm on the board of Innovate UK, and we give out advisory board, and we give out 1.4 billion pounds to business, and I see that the focus is still on manufacturing rather than service, which we're trying to change, and we will change, because 80% of our businesses are service businesses, and I'm learning all the time too. It's not that I know everything, so I could give wrong advice too.
Final question. You've had an amazing journey,
Yeah.
quite extraordinary journey. Charity, entrepreneurship, politics. My next obvious question is, what's next? Have you got anything left to do?
Well, I've written my memoirs, and I've found a publisher, which is quite a feat, I think. Touch wood. and I've started a new business. So, as I said, follow the money. The European Union is giving 750 billion euros towards COVID-19, and mainly towards green projects. And they're giving another 1 trillion euros over the next 20 years towards green projects. So 1.75, really. Now you work that out, and I have 900 acres of farmland in Romania, which was growing wheat. And I said, hang on, why can't I plaster this with solar panels? So I decided this year to promote a 348 megawatt solar farm in Romania. So I had to raise 250 million euros for that. And there's so much money behind green energy that I raised double that. Not that I need it, but it's all verbal at the moment. But, you know, I just thought I'd raise a bit more if some people said, no, we've changed our mind. So so I'm doing that, and I hope it succeeds.
Dinesh, I'm going to summarize some of the brilliant stuff you said. So hopefully you'll agree with this. You've told us today it's all about risk taking. You've told us be ready to make mistakes, learn as you go along. You said hire the best. Certainly think big. Go where the money is. NASDAQ, which was interesting. You spoke about first mover and how to make advantage of that. Great examples of networking and how during your journey, networking really helped you. In times of crisis, survival, back to basics, resilience are really key. You spoke about persistence. You spoke about keep learning. And I love your last three tips. Think like an investor, build a team, and make sure you got a USP. And you know something?
I think Ninder, you can add, following the money, not only the NASDAQ, but also the green energy, which is...
Absolutely. And Dinesh, I'm going to be front of the queue when your book comes out.
Well, that's very kind, Ninder. It's such a pleasure meeting you.
No, listen, this has been something I've been waiting for ages. And once this podcast idea started to take shape, you were on my hit list. And so, listen, thank you very much. Wish you the best for the weekend, and looking forward to putting this up both on YouTube, on podcast, and obviously those who love to read can read your journey as well. Dinesh, you've been fantastic. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Ninder. Bye-bye.